Police are searching for a missing mother of two. They find human remains in a burnt-out oil drum. 40 miles away, another macabre discovery suggests a second victim. Police are convinced they're dealing with a serial killer. But without any bodies, it's critical that they have enough evidence to put them behind bars. The stakes are high. If the murderer walks free, he's almost certain to kill again. Catching a killer requires conclusive forensic evidence. From clues at the scene of the crime to minute examination in the forensics lab. From the cold reality of the pathologist's table to DNA sampling, digital analysis. Each piece of killer evidence brings the murderer closer to justice. Kent, November 2021. And a young single mom has gone missing. Her family are frantic with worry. Alex Morgan was due to collect her two children from her parents after a spa break in York. Detective Chief Inspector Neil Kimber is about to take over the case.
Alex's mum and dad reported her missing. So that's where the investigation starts. Now, every missing person is an investigation, but that's conducted by officers from a local policing division. And they would do a series of inquiries in order to try and ascertain Alex's whereabouts at that point. If we cannot find any trace of Alex, or there's some real concerns, then the risk is elevated somewhat. And after a couple of days, that risk was elevated to a high risk, given the growing concerns that the family had. The inquiry then takes a different twist. It then gets raised and passed over to the Major Crime Department, which I'm part of.
As a devoted mom of two young boys, it's completely out of character for Alex not to answer her phone.
She may not want to be found at this stage. You have to have that in the back of your mind as well. She may have just decided to just go off the grid completely and doesn't want to talk to anyone. But also at the same time, you've got to think of, has she gone off? Has life got too much? Has she committed suicide? Or has someone committed the ultimate crime and taken her life?
But detectives soon realise she has a hidden life.
What we did know from Alex is she did engage in sex work, and that was potentially one of our lines of inquiry. Has she gone off and met a client, still being with a client? So it could be that she doesn't want to disclose that to her family at this point.
Detectives search her home in the hope of finding any indication of where she went.
They're looking for clues. Has the missing person taken their handbag? Have they taken makeup? Have they taken clothes? Has that person purportedly gone missing with all the items that her mum and dad would have said she would have taken for her trip on the spa weekend? So we're looking to corroborate those facts when we go to someone's property.
With no leads found at Alex's house, a team of experts analysed local CCTV cameras, starting with the morning she left home 6 days earlier.
What we did have is Alex went to a local garage just down the road from her house.
It's the first piece of evidence in the case. A hopeful sign that Alex will be found alive and reunited with her family.
It's a good starting point to say, well, actually, we know she's not with anyone else at that point. So is she with someone? Has someone taken her? Is she going to come to some harm at that particular point? It gives you that belief that, no, there's nothing wrong at that particular time.
The hunt for Alex now becomes a hunt for her car. One way detectives can do this is by using a sophisticated CCTV system called ANPR.
ANPR means automatic number plate recognition system. And basically there are a series of cameras that will look at the registration plate on a vehicle, and then link to national databases, Police National Computer, and they're able to feed back information as to say that particular vehicle bearing that number plate was seen at that location at that time.
It doesn't take long to get their first hit. Another piece of evidence on the trail to finding Alex.
And on this particular occasion, when we searched both databases, the last known sighting we had of Alex's vehicle was just south of her home address.
Alex appears to be heading south, not north, as she told her parents. It's a worrying sign. The ANPR trail then goes cold. Now detectives turn to their next investigative tool, Alex's phone. She appears to have it with her, so the police request her call logs from the service provider.
So the data is pretty simple. It doesn't contain the content of messages. It doesn't contain the content of a voice call. It contains the date and time of a connection, the telephone numbers involved, so telephone A speaking to telephone B, the duration of the call, and whether it's a data transmission or a voice transmission.
So we'll look at the calls and texts that Alex has been making and to try and establish who she's had contact with, who her last known contacts were, because then they become a relevant line of inquiry for us to follow up to see if they know anything more about her whereabouts.
Alex's calls and text logs fail to provide any leads from her associates. But one call she makes that morning can be traced to a physical location.
Every time the phone wants to send or receive data, it has to do it via a cell tower. Data contains the unique identity of the cell tower itself. So we have a geographic latitude and longitude location for a particular cell tower.
26 minutes after leaving the petrol station, her mobile connects to a phone tower around 18 miles further south in Sussex. It's another piece of crucial evidence in the hunt for Alex.
This is a classic case of the police really being on it because the parents were on it. She was loved. She didn't pick up her children, who she loved. The police reacted quickly. CCTV, ANPR, phone use, digital triangulation. They knew her story about going north to the spa couldn't be accurate because she was heading south. So this is a remarkably fast and smart investigation by the police, working really at the very top of their game.
Analysts searched the area within the range of the Sussex phone mast. Alex must have been inside this 5-kilometre radius when she made her last call. They're looking for any CCTV cameras that may have picked her up.
That's a significant challenge because we are talking about a fairly rural location. It's not a town centre. There aren't many CCTV cameras. So that is down to the officers literally going door to door, using their eyes, looking for Ring doorbell or private CCTV, local authority CCTV, and then making that request and going checking that CCTV very quickly.
Other officers drive the streets looking for the car itself.
So that's a 5-kilometre radius that we're asking officers to drive around street to street, road to road to try and find her vehicle. And that takes some time, as you can imagine.
It's now 5 days since Alex was reported missing and 9 days since she left home. Her family are getting desperate. Finally, officers spot a CCTV camera overlooking a track leading to a farm.
The officers then went into conducting inquiries with the owner. The owner was very helpful, and they were to look at that CCTV system and really focused on what they were trying to achieve.
The officers scrutinise every detail in the footage to chase up any potential clues.
I recall I was sat in the middle of the incident room. The detective sergeant had taken a phone call just to say this is what we found, and literally turns around and shouts over, "We got her," on CCTV. And at that moment you're like, you leave your chair straight away and you want to hear what the officers are saying on the phone. They're then describing what's going on, and it kind of gives you a lift straight away.
Alex appears to be waiting for another car, a gold Jaguar, which she then follows up the track.
This is a really significant breakthrough. I'm really buoyed at this point. I'm thinking, well, we might even find Alex on that site in her vehicle. She just doesn't want to be found at this particular time. She just wants a break from everything, from life, except we don't know.
This is a eureka moment for the officers. She's alive. That's great. She's in the car, alive. And that gives them some hope. And now, additionally, there are a whole range of investigative opportunities open to them. There is a potential location where the car could be, where she could be, and there are witnesses they can talk to about where Alex is, or perhaps where she's gone.
And when they turned and went up the farm track, we were able to identify the number plate from the CCTV. So then, as you can imagine, for me, that's an absolute goldmine of information. We then established quite quickly who that vehicle belongs to. Where do they live? Where are they now?
The gold Jaguar belongs to a 40-year-old builder and father of one, called Mark Brown. He rents the land and uses it for his workshop. As Alex is involved in sex work, police suspect Brown may be one of her clients. And it's possible he's holding her against her will or has done her some harm. Police have already spotted Alex on CCTV at her local petrol station. Then picked her car up heading south before narrowing down her location via a phone call. This sighting on the farm track makes Brown the last person to see Alex since she went missing. The priority now is to search the farm as soon as possible.
I remember sending a number of officers, I think 6 officers went there in a van. But then it's a moment of waiting. It takes them 15 minutes to get there. They update on the radio to say we're now on scene. And then, about 20 minutes after that, it comes back to say, yeah, she's not here, there's no one here. And it's kind of like a bit of a stunned moment to say, right, okay, so she must leave on CCTV at some point, but we've still got to view that CCTV and establish when she left, who she left with.
Alex could have driven off the farm at any point in the last 9 days. Potentially, there's more than 200 hours of footage to analyse. But then, with officers still on site, Mark Brown himself drives up the track.
So we invite the individual to the police station where we take a statement from him. He's more than happy to help us. Says, oh yeah, I'll help her. Yeah, I do know Alex, etc. It's the first things that came out of his mouth. I'll do anything to help you. Really came across quite genuine, quite plausible. Yeah, I'll come to the police station, I'll give you a statement. Yeah, I'll give you my DNA, my fingerprints. You can have a look at my mobile phone, etc. And basically, he tells us in his statement that yes, he's met Alex online, and he's engaged in some sexual activity with Alex. And on that particular morning, he met Alex around 8 o'clock in the morning. They had sex, and then she left about an hour later.
The officers now would engage and understand this was a normal transaction. It happens. They knew at this stage that Alex was a sex worker. The most important thing to remember is this was a legal, normal, standard transaction. Sex between one consenting individual and another. It's legal.
He's then released. He's not arrested.
If Brown is telling the truth about Alex's movements, CCTV analysts should spot her leaving the farm around an hour after she arrived.
And the officer's saying, we've just reviewed the footage again. We can't see her leaving, as that individual said about an hour later. Well, how far have you got? Well, we've got to about 3 or 4 hours after that time. What, she's still not left? Double check that and make sure. And these are absolutely critical at this point.
Inconsistencies in Brown's account raise questions for the police.
Is he a witness, or is he something more? Has he done something sinister to Alex Morgan, or is he hiding her? I need to know a little bit more about him, so then we start to do some intelligence work on him. And the initial scope of that intelligence didn't really tell us very much at all. So it wasn't like we've got someone here who's known for a lot of violent, really serious offences, which kind of made it even more perplexing, if I'm honest.
Police again turn to the CCTV for answers. They painstakingly watch another 24 hours of footage. Finally, they see Alex's Mini leaving the farm 16 hours after she arrived.
But it appears to leave in darkness, and it appears to be one person getting in the vehicle, and it appears to be, it's dark. It's a silhouetted figure to a degree, albeit you can make out. It's certainly someone a lot taller and bigger than Alex Morgan. So we know that Alex's vehicle left later on that day, on the 14th, and then comes back in the early hours of the 15th. It just seems unlikely that she's likely to be alive at this stage. I want her to be, but in my heart, I kind of thinking, this is 9 days on now, 10 days on. It's unlikely.
Alex's disappearance is now officially a murder inquiry with Brown as the main suspect.
I'm not satisfied now with what he's told us and what I've seen, and he's subsequently arrested the following morning by officers at his home address in Sussex.
Hello, mate, it's the police. Just go inside for a sec. Is it Mark?
Yes.
Yeah, just right there. That's okay. We're from Kent Police. Okay, and just listen to what this officer's going to say to you.
Mate, it's 5:35 in the morning. I'm arresting you on suspicion of the murder of Alexandra Morgan. Okay? We believe that you were the last person that Alexandra Morgan was seen to be alive with. So therefore, you do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence. You do not.
Is there anything you want to say to us?
Not right now.
No. Okay, that's fine.
Now in police custody, Brown's demeanour completely changes. He refuses to answer any further questions.
Some of the key pieces of information of what he's told us, as in Alex Morgan went onto his land, had sex, and then she left an hour later. We now know that's categorically not true. When challenged on that, he says no comment. At that point, I'm pretty confident he's killed her.
But police still lack the killer evidence. All they have is CCTV that proves Alex never left the farm. They now need to search the land for any trace of her.
I can remember driving up the track Alex Morgan drove up onto that land, and it was quite misty. And it, without doubt, it started to put the hairs on the back of my neck. It was just a bizarre moment. It just had a real eeriness to it. And then got to this workshop barn that Mark Brown had, went inside the shipping container that was at the far end, was a small 6x6 room within that shipping container with a door on the outside, with bolts on the outside, with a bed. I think that's probably where Mark Brown may have had a sexual interaction with Alex Morgan. I think it's probably maybe he wanted to keep her there for a few days and do whatever he had in his mind to Alex Morgan. I've got to say, in all my years as a police officer, that is the most chilling crime scene I've ever been to.
Dozens of officers conduct a thorough search of Brown's farm.
And they search, fingertip search, that 4 acres, raw land and buildings for clues for Alex Morgan. We didn't find a thing.
Despite the lack of a body, Mark Brown was the last person to see Alex alive, and the Crown Prosecution Service agree there's enough circumstantial evidence to charge him with her murder. With Brown safely in custody, the police have more time to build their case. Before he was arrested, Brown was working at a construction site in Sevenoaks. The police head there next.
Has he buried a body? Has he hidden her? It could be anywhere. Has he put her in the footings of a building?
The manager at the site tells police Brown had asked him if he could get rid of something in a skip. A specialist team gets to work examining its contents.
We found an oil drum that would be converted into an incinerator, if you like. And at the bottom of that was a load of ash and dust. But actually, what was just next to that was a carrier bag. And in that carrier bag was hair straighteners and a hairdryer. That's a bit of a strange thing to have on a building site.
Police want to know whether the hairdryer and straighteners belong to Alex, so they send them off to a lab to test for her DNA.
And my crime scene manager comes back quite quickly within a day and says, that DNA belongs to Alex Morgan. So now I've got Alex Morgan's DNA on a hairdryer and a pair of hair straighteners at a building site next to something that Mark Brown's put into that skip.
The team intensified the search of the burnt-out oil drum and the rest of the skip's contents.
We essentially set up a search lab there where we're sifting through all this debris in this oil drum and the skip.
The team then make a major breakthrough. Amongst the ash, they find what appear to be hundreds of fragments of bones.
I'm talking the sort of size of your fingernail, but hundreds and hundreds of them in that barrel. My crime scene manager, experienced they are, call in a forensic anthropologist. So we put a whole scene on around this area. They come down, they start to look at some of those fragments, and they establish really quickly that they're bone and they're human bones.
A picture is beginning to emerge of what happened to Alex Morgan. Police may never find out how she was killed, but it's increasingly likely that Brown burnt her body in this oil drum. The problem now is that the charred bone fragments are unlikely to yield any DNA samples that can identify Alex.
Bone is a good source of DNA if the marrow within the bone has survived. So you can use the marrow from within the bone, extract it, and again, take a sample of DNA to make sure that that matches the missing person. It's not always helpful, but it can be in some cases.
In this case, the bone marrow has been destroyed by the flames.
We sent a number of samples off to see if we could extract, and we couldn't find anything. It was just to be thorough.
In amongst the bones, the specialists also find 2 teeth.
And that's quite a significant breakthrough, because why would we find 2 teeth in an oil drum, in a skip, at a building site that Mark Brown's working at, where Alex Morgan's hairdryer and her hair straighteners are?
The teeth are sent to a specialist dentist, known as a forensic odontologist.
Now, this is a dentist who is able to look at dental records and compare them to the teeth or the jaws in which we've discovered. So in this case, the fact that they found fragments of bone and fragments of teeth, and the forensic odontologist has been able to use those teeth to identify the deceased, would be usually because there's been dental work which has been unique to that person. So the forensic odontologist would have gained the dental records of the deceased, which they had during life, and compared those with the teeth which were discovered.
So when we're trying to identify, we weren't going to get any DNA from those bone fragments, so we had to rely on odontology. So what we were able to establish quite quickly with all those bone fragments, teeth and circumstances, that was Alex Morgan.
This is clearly killer evidence. It's remarkable. It shows the extra lengths these officers went to. They were indeed very, very lucky to actually find the barrel before it had been disposed of in the skip. So what we had here was bone fragments and teeth, which were indisputably linked to the victim, and they also had confirmation that the perpetrator was trying to destroy and get rid of this key forensic evidence. It didn't work. The net was now closing in.
It is a real kind of bittersweet moment at that time. You're kind of pleased that you've got an answer, and then you've got to go and speak to the family and say, this is what we found. And I remember just the disbelief from Alex's parents, as you can imagine, as to what we'd found. And I have no idea how to process that. From then till whenever, I have no idea.
The evidence against Brown is building, but the detectives continue searching. In Brown's work vehicle, they find prescription drugs belonging to someone called Leah Ware.
So we're like, well, that's a key person. Let's go and find out, see if Leah Ware knows anything about Mark Brown, knows anything about Alex Morgan, key line of inquiry. My officers then go out and they can't find her. They cannot find Leah Ware.
Until now, no one had raised any alarm bells about Leah Ware. No one has reported her missing. But with the shocking discovery that she hasn't been seen for 6 months, it's possible she's another of Brown's victims. Police have already gathered a wealth of evidence in relation to Alex Morgan's disappearance. They spotted Alex on CCTV at her local petrol station, then picked her car up heading south before narrowing her location via a phone call. The sighting of her car with Mark Brown's Jaguar on the farm track makes Brown the last person to see Alex since she went missing. The discovery of a burnt-out oil drum with her hair products discarded nearby, and fragments of bone and teeth inside have strengthened the prosecution case for her murder. But if Leah Ware disappeared 6 months ago, any evidence that she's been killed will be harder to find. Sussex police opened an investigation into Leah Ware's disappearance and quickly established that the mother of 3 was in an abusive relationship with Brown. Her friends tell police Brown would use her for sex and then lock her in his shipping container before returning to his family.
He has quite loose moral boundaries, looking to pay for sex, and he probably has quite dark sexual fantasies, but it feels like he's trying to keep that separate from his wife and from his home life. So he's almost trying to compartmentalize these internal impulses away from other people that he knows.
Police discover Leah kept her pet dog with her at Brown's farm.
Leah Ware never went anywhere without her little dog. It was called Lady. It was a Pomeranian. And every person that he had spoken to said how they said that was her baby. She never left. She never went anywhere without it.
It's apparent that if Leah was still alive, she would have Lady with her. With this in mind, Sussex police make a macabre discovery after draining a pond at Brown's farm.
There was a pond which was quite close to the outbuilding of Mark Brown's workshop. And in that pond, there was a kettlebell that was found, and attached to that was a lead and a collar and a number of small bones next to that, which appeared to belong to a small animal.
An expert confirms the bones are those of a Pomeranian dog. It's strong circumstantial evidence that Leah is no longer alive, killed by Brown, who then got rid of her dog. Sussex detectives also find CCTV footage of Brown continuing to pick up Leah's medication after her disappearance. Their theory is that he did so to give the impression she was alive, but they're now convinced he'd already killed her. The Crown Prosecution Service agree, and Brown is charged with Leah's murder. Brown's work van has been an important source of evidence. Police now discover it's fitted with a tracker. They trace it to a cash point where CCTV shows Brown withdraws cash and then fills a jerry can with petrol.
And this is after what we believe potentially Alex Morgan's been killed. And it's our belief that he killed her and then he set fire to Alex's body in order to dispose of her.
Up until now, Brown has denied any involvement with the disappearance of either Alex Morgan or Leah Ware. But at a pre-trial hearing, charged with both murders, Brown's legal team makes an astonishing admission.
Their legal team then say, my client is admitting to destroying Alex Morgan's body by fire, but says it was an accident. And in relation to Leah Ware, he's saying he doesn't know where she is. I'm sat next to Alex Morgan's father, who at that point is just dumbfounded as we are. We're quite shocked at that point. It's quite a revelation. And at that stage, a really hard thing for Alex's dad to kind of take in. And it was a real revelation inquiry, really. That's quite a significant step. Now, essentially what we've done at that point is we've got the right person. We know she's dead. He's saying it was an accident. We'll have to disprove that. And he's saying how he did it as well, which is quite horrific.
Brown claims Alex fell over in his workshop that Sunday morning when she met him on his farm.
She banged her head and she split her head open and there was blood everywhere, and he panicked. And then he put her in an oil drum, poured petrol and set fire to her. and then dispose of her body at building site, as we know.
So effectively he was admitting to a minor crime, illicit disposal of a corpse, but he wasn't admitting to murder. It was an accident. So he proffered that. He understood there was no CCTV. He understood that there was no confirmation of that, and therefore also no ability to disprove it. But what he doesn't understand is, of course, every accident will leave a trace. If there's no trace, maybe there's no accident. So it's left to the police to try and disprove his late defence.
If he was telling the truth, there would be evidence of her blood at his workshop.
Blood is incredibly difficult to get rid of. If you look at it, it looks like you've done a marvellous job and that you've cleaned this off beautifully. But there are often traces of blood there still, even though you can't see them, and there are techniques available and chemical enhancements that will show you exactly where the blood is, even if it's not visible to the naked eye.
Officers again searched Brown's workshop.
We searched his workshop. There was no trace of any blood there. We had forensic teams in there. We had what we call blood dogs, if you like, or specialist search dogs. They didn't indicate at all.
The fact that there's no trace of Alex's blood at the workshop undermines Brown's claim that she died in an accident. Police are confident the defence case won't hold up in court, but they press on and see if they can locate her vehicle.
So if we find her car, she could still be in the car, she could be in the boot. Anything could give us a forensic opportunity.
The CCTV analysts have now watched 4 full days of footage from the camera overlooking the farm track. They spot her Mini leaving the farm on the 17th of November, driven by Brown, and following a small van.
We identify who that other individual was, and he is arrested for assisting an offender at that point. So we're quite late on in the evening, and I'm heading home at this point. I've got this individual being interviewed, fully expecting a no-comment interview, etc. However, the individual then tells us exactly where they went, and this individual said they went back. Mark Brown had asked him to help drop a car off, and can you pick me up? He'd agreed to do it, and he told us exactly where that car was.
Brown had changed Alex's number plates, but there was no further evidence in the vehicle to take the case forward. Now the team prepare for trial. They review their evidence and disclose it to Brown's defence team.
Disclosure is a normal part of the protocols. It's an obligation on the police and prosecution to hand over used and unused material to the defence, because in that material, the defence, the accused, might find something that might be useful to their defence. But it also offers the police an opportunity to examine the weaknesses and strengths of their own case before they ultimately bring it to court and present it to the jury.
Officers review the footage from the body cameras worn while searching Alex's house.
And as they're reviewing the body-worn footage, they can see that there's a note in front of the TV. And that note says, it's addressed, it's clearly from Alex Morgan, addressed to her son. And she says, let's go rollerblading. So, when we then start to look further into that, we then establish that when we go into the bedroom of her son, we then find a rollerblade box. And within that rollerblade box is a couple of £1,000 in a child's bedroom. And there's also a mobile phone.
The phone is a significant piece of new evidence. It contains messages showing Brown had lured her to the farm with the promise of a £100,000 business deal.
He said he had a job for her. It was a weekend. It wasn't much work involved. She would have to do a few bits of shopping, go in and out, and bag up a lot of cash. And for that, Alex Morgan was going to get paid £100,000.
When the police discovered through the WhatsApp messages that poor Alex was lured to the farm with the promise of £100,000, an indecent proposal. Why? Well, the police knew that Mark Brown was lying because he was a construction worker who worked part-time on cars on the side. There was no way he had £100,000 in the bank. There was no way he could deliver on his promise to Alex. He now was a liar. He lied to lure this poor victim into his lair.
Alex did suspect the offer was too good to be true. Among the items in the rollerblade box are notes to help the police in the event of her disappearance. They include the postcode of Brown's farm.
And there's also a note which says along the lines of, if you need it as evidence, give this to the police. That's quite a significant breakthrough. She had basically left a breadcrumb trail for her son to find and let probably grandparents know if it all went wrong, and then let the police know. And that trail turned into a real goldmine, and it really, really assisted on the inquiry and said what this was all about. And I think we do know, what we're able to establish is that when Mark Brown left Little Rich Farm on that evening that he'd probably killed Alex at that stage on the 14th, we believe he went back to her home address and he was searching for something. And I believe that's what he was looking for. Because I think there'd probably been a fallout between Alex and Mark Brown about this whole thing, this whole setup, this whole $100,000 deal, if you like. And I think Alex had probably called him out and established it was a lie. And she may well have said, well, I've got evidence of it if anything happens to me. It is my real belief that that's what Mark Brown was going back to find. But thankfully he didn't find it, and we did.
The commitment and relentless hard work of two police forces has amassed a wealth of evidence against Mark Brown. They have CCTV footage of Alex at her local petrol station, then heading south before narrowing her location to Sussex via a phone call. Further CCTV shows her car along with Mark Brown's Jaguar on a track near his farm, which makes Brown the last person to see Alex alive. The discovery of a burnt-out oil drum, with Alex's hair products nearby, and fragments of bone and teeth inside the drum have strengthened the prosecution case. Then Leah's medication is discovered in Brown's van, and the remains of her pet dog are found as the lake on his farm is drained. CCTV footage shows Brown picking up Leah's prescription drugs. And there is also CCTV of him taking out cash to pay for a jerry can of fuel. And he asked for an accomplice to get rid of Alex's car. But the outcome of the case is now out of the detectives' hands. With Leah Ware's body still missing, they can only hope they've built up enough evidence to persuade the jury to find Brown guilty of both murders. In October 2022, the trial begins. Brown admits disposing of Alex's body, but says her death was an accident. He denies murdering Leah, who hasn't been seen since May 2021.
I was quite confident about the trial because obviously we got the right person. Mark Brown had already said he'd disposed of Alex Morgan and destroyed her body by fire. And during the trial, he elected to say, well, she fell over as an accident in a workshop. And he was quite elaborate when he was giving his evidence, and he gave an indication that she split her head open, there was blood everywhere, and it was almost running out of the workshop like a river. He said he cleared it up, but we had specialist teams and there was no evidence we ever saw any blood like that. And some of the questions he was asked through the trial, he had not answered any questions previously, so now he's making up evidence as he's going along in the box. And at that point, the SIO, you're looking at that going, would you really believe that? Would you really believe that?
Brown gives another story about the £100,000 business deal referred to in messages on the phone in the rollerblade box.
Mark Brown, when questioned about that purportedly, came up with the facade that he wanted Alex to do a load of webcam work at a hotel room, which the jury saw right through. And I don't think they believed any of that, not 1 minute.
Brown's explanation for the remains of Leah Ware's dog being found at his farm is equally far-fetched.
Leah had just kind of lost it completely and she'd gone into a bit of an episode. And what she'd done is she'd thrown Lady into the pond, attached to this kettlebell, and Lady had drowned. And I think any time you've got an emotional connection to an animal, people kind of have an affinity with that, don't they? And I think the jury saw the whole picture around Leah Ware having that relationship with Lady, and then all of a sudden throwing her in the pond, attached to the kettlebell, and Mark Brown's behaviour. I think they saw right through that.
The trial lasts 6 weeks. After deliberating for 2 days, the jury finds Mark Brown guilty of the murders of both Alex Morgan and Leah Ware. The killer evidence in the conviction for Alex Morgan's murder is the teeth found in the oil barrel.
Despite Brown's attempts to claim that it was an accidental death, the killer evidence, the bone fragments and the 2 teeth, which dental records confirmed belonged to poor Alex, our victim, and of course the evidence that he was attempting to dispose of these bone fragments and crucial teeth, it basically made the case compelling for the jury. And add to that, now another missing person on the farm, other bits of compelling evidence, and the jury were now left with no option but to convict him for the murder of 2 missing women.
Regarding Leah Ware, it's a testament to the work of Sussex Police that they secured a conviction in the absence of any physical evidence.
With Leah, it's a kind of very different case. There isn't that killer forensic evidence, but there is plenty of circumstantial evidence. That circumstantial evidence, together with all the evidence convicting him of Alex's murder, allowed the jury to convict him beyond a reasonable doubt of the murder of Leah as well.
Brown is sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 49 years to be served for each murder to run concurrently, minus the 380 days he spent on remand.
I think that represents the gravity of Mark Brown's crime, not only killing 2 innocent women, trying to make the best, trying to make a decent life for themselves, and certainly Alex for the children, and the sexual motivation that he had behind it all, and the kind of deviancy that he displayed right the way throughout. Not just throughout the way he interacted with both Leah and Alex Morgan, but certainly almost through the trial as well. We almost had an answer for everything. But again, I just think his lies just caught up with him in the end.
As for his motive, perhaps this is something only Brown himself will ever know.
The age-old question that people always want to know is why somebody would carry out a murder or even multiple murders. I think when this happens in the context of impulsive rage, or when somebody escalates their violence in an argument, or if they feel disrespected, then the average person can at least understand those emotions. It's when somebody pre-plans murders or multiple murders, especially on vulnerable victims, that the average person can't understand that, because we don't have those kind of thought processes.
In summing up, Justice Nicholas Hilliard was very emphatic. He told the court Brown used Leah to satisfy his own sexual desires. I cannot say how the defendant murdered Leah Ware. Part of the purpose of obliterating her remains was to hide how she came about her death. And he further went on to say he successfully disposed of Leah Ware's body. Exactly what happened will never be known. In relation to Alex Morgan, he said, she came to Littlebridge Farm as Mark Brown pretended it was the start of a money-making scheme. He claimed to have had the inside scoop. The judge said she was extremely vulnerable because she was on her own at the isolated farm and beyond help. He then went on to say that no sentence I can pass is any measure of the lives that have been lost, and no sentence can put right what the defendant Mark Brown has done. That's not possible. Brown, he said, hasn't attended court today, which showed his conscience is untroubled by what he has done. Well, he then went on to pass sentence, which certainly would trouble Mark Brown. 49 years on each count of murder, which effectively means he will never see the outside of a jail again.
As was the case throughout the investigation, it's Alex's and Leah's families who are at the forefront of the detectives' minds when justice is finally served.
For me, it's more relief for the family. They've got some sort of answers, some sort of justice. It will never be the right justice, clearly, but I hoped, and you're always, as the SI, you're always hoping that the family get the justice they deserve. And I think they did in this particular occasion. The judge sentencing Mark Brown to 49 years for the murder of Alex Morgan, 49 years for the murder of Leah Ware to run concurrently. That's a significant sentence.
Mark Brown thought he'd got away with the murder of Leah Ware. Then he lured Alex Morgan to the same location to be his next victim. But for the professionalism of hundreds of investigators, Brown might very well have killed again. Instead, he'll spend the rest of his life behind bars.